So, Wild Nights with Emily. Now, this type of, the story of Emily Dickinson, you look at like the way this film is assembled, and like the first thing that came to my mind was, this could be like an episode of Drunk History, where they say like, oh, everyone thought that, Emily Dickinson was sort of like a recluse of her time, but then we've discovered all these kind of like private letters and poems that she's written that proves that, well, no, she actually had kind of a wild secret life of being a lesbian. And yeah, and that's one of those like jumping out points where you're like, whoa, wait, Emily Dickinson was a lesbian and she had like this secret affair. Wow, that's pretty that's very pretty unexpected. That could make a great comedy, and that's exactly what writer director Madeline Olnek thought when she was looking up this information on Emily Dickinson. And she says, like, she looked at this material and she's like, you know what? There's a pretty good comedy in here. Like, we could tell kind of like a little bit of an earnest tale, but we could kind of like bring out the humor in the fact that you wouldn't expect this, from like a period piece. And there's been a few period pieces over the years where they have showed kind of like, the untold history where they've sort of like unearthed, like what women were really like during this time, during a time when it was, it wasn't like societally acceptable to be this kind of person. Now for Emily Dickinson, it was twofold actually. One, it was because of her lesbian affair, but the other thing is because, of her wanting to be a poet. Because she really, much like, like Vincent van Gogh, she didn't really become as renowned until, after her death, after the fact. And so she's kind of like battling these two worlds here. Like, one, because Emily Dickinson is played in the film by Molly Shannon, and it's perfect casting having Molly Shannon here, because you can tell that she's mostly here, she's putting an earnest performance in, where she's trying to sort of like give like a closed reaction to the absurdity of what's going on around her, to the absurdity of society and what she has to do behind closed doors and how she has to conceal herself. That she really doesn't have to try too hard for a laugh here. Like, it feels very much tongue-in-cheek here, in more ways than one, actually. So it turns out, she's very obsessed with this woman Susan that she's grown up with, and she wrote a lot of poems for her, even a few poems where she specifically calls out to Susan in them. And they even practice kissing at one point, and then kissing leads to more stuff and more stuff. And then, of course, because they want to be a comedy, everything feels a little bit more accentuated here. So in other words, when Emily and Susan make out, they really make out. And when Emily Dickinson is trying to deal with these men who are kind of like looking down on her and her work, they really look down on her, and they really come off as buffoons. Where you kind of get a little bit of that drunk history in there. I almost kind of like, I mean, I can't quite shake the drunk history aspect. I kept waiting for some historian to just like drunkenly say like, so Emily, she was just at home, and then husband wasn't home, so she just had a ball with Susan, and then the kids came in. Which is weird because like this whole time Emily's husband of Austin doesn't figure this out, but it seems like maybe the kids are onto it. It seems like the kids kind of get it a little bit here. There's one moment where they're trying to hide from the kids, and like they have that moment where they're kind of like, oh, by the way, I know that other woman's in there. And of course, because they're kids, it doesn't mean that much to them. So yeah, it's quite the revealing film. It's very irreverent. It has a lot of, like I said, it has a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor in it, where it feels like it's not trying too hard for a laugh, and the laughs just come naturally, from seeing what Emily had to deal with, to seeing how passionate she was, behind closed doors, and just the whole revealing nature of it is just, it's wild. I mean, it's a trip, it's a very revealing film. Very, very much different from like if usually I find like stuffy period pieces, are not my bag. And if you're that type of person, I would consider giving this film a shot just because it seems so out there. Like the comedy is pretty rich here. The comedy's rich here, but the romance does feel real. The situation feels relatable. And it actually feels, for being so like shocking and revealing, compared to other period pieces that we have now, it feels kind of in that same vein of its presentation. At the same time, embracing more of its absurdity. So yeah, I actually had quite a bit of fun watching this film. So, Wild Nights with Emily, 4 out of 5 stars.